The first thing Kael noticed wasn't the cold metallic scent of the ship, nor the echo of his own boots on the steel floor. It was the eyes. Thousands of them, glimmering, unblinking, intelligent, staring at him from the observation deck. He swallowed hard and forced a calm he didn't feel. "Welcome to the Crucible," a voice said, deep and melodic, yet edged with something alien, almost predatory. Kael turned. Standing before him was a being tall enough to make him crane his neck, skin a reflective silver, limbs elongated like shadows stretching at dusk. Its name, he learned, was Varath, the overseer of this station at the edge of human space. "You're not supposed to be here," Kael said, though his voice trembled slightly. "And yet here you stand," Varath replied, almost amused. "Humans have a reputation. Let's see if it is deserved." Kael's mission was simple on paper: study the alien soldiers of the Zorathian Empire and report back. On the surface, it sounded like reconnaissance. Beneath it, Kael suspected a deeper danger. Humans weren't known for subtlety. They were known for resilience, stubbornness, and unpredictability. And apparently, the Zorathians feared it. The station itself was a marvel of alien engineering, corridors of luminous metal that seemed to pulse with a heartbeat, training arenas that defied gravity, and containment fields that shimmered like heat waves. Yet every corner whispered danger. Every shadow hinted at consequences far beyond Kael's understanding. "Your kind calls us monsters," Varath said suddenly, walking closer, his voice echoing strangely in the vast hall. "Do you know why we train our soldiers?" Kael shook his head. "To defend your empire?" Varath chuckled, a sound like wind through glass.
"Defense is a lie.
Survival is truth. You will see soon enough." Before Kael could respond, alarms blared, red lights casting everything in an ominous glow. Across the observation deck, troops rushed with synchronized precision. Weapons raised, bodies moving in fluid patterns that seemed impossible for anything but the genetically enhanced. "They never stopped training," Kael murmured, awe and fear mingling in his chest. Even when not at war?" Varath's eyes flickered, almost like fire dancing beneath silver. "War is eternal, Kael, and humans, you might be more dangerous than you realize." Kael froze. His words stumbled out before his mind caught up. "Wait, why me?" "Why send a human here?" "Curiosity," Varath said almost sadly. "The universe is vast. And yet humans, your species, push boundaries where others falter. We'd wish to see what fire can teach water, what Deathworlders can teach Supersoldiers." The meaning hit Kael with the weight of a star collapsing. They didn't just want him to observe, they wanted to test him. To see if humanity itself could survive and shape soldiers of unimaginable power. Before Kael could respond, a small alarm buzzed on his wrist. A signal from Earth Command, but when he tried to activate it, the device fizzled, sparks dancing uselessly. The message was clear. No one could reach him now. From the shadows of the observation deck, a smaller figure approached, one of the Zorathian recruits, humanoid but with skin the color of molten bronze, eyes sharp and bright like morning suns. "He will change everything," it said quietly to Kael, almost as if sharing a secret. Kael swallowed hard, understanding the weight of those words before the recruit vanished into the training halls. He was alone yet surrounded. He was prey yet observer. And somewhere deep in his chest a spark of defiance ignited. If humanity had taught him anything, it was this. They never gave up, and Kael was not about to start. As the doors to the training arenas hissed open, revealing soldiers leaping and twisting through impossible obstacle courses, Kael realized this was no longer reconnaissance. This was an initiation, and someone would not survive it. Kael's boots echoed against the metallic floor, a lone human among a sea of Zorathian soldiers. The training arena stretched farther than the eye could see, a labyrinth of shifting walls, floating platforms, and gravity-defying obstacles. His throat was dry. His pulse was a drumbeat that matched the lights pulsing in the ceiling. Varath watched from above, arms folded, expression unreadable. "Your kind is stubborn," he said to no one in particular, his voice carrying through the arena like a soft warning. "Let's see if stubbornness alone can endure the Crucible." A booming voice filled the hall.
"First trial, adaptation."
The Zorathian instructor's limbs bent at impossible angles, its voice vibrating like low thunder. "Survive the arena. Learn or perish. Fail and your existence is irrelevant." Kael swallowed. Every instinct screamed to run, but he knew running would be futile. The walls shifted. Platforms hovered and collapsed. Sensors flared bright green, then deadly red, and he realized the arena itself was a predator, designed to exploit weaknesses. A bronze-skinned soldier appeared beside him. "Name's Sira," she said, voice calm yet sharp, eyes sizing him up like a predator calculating prey. "Humans, you survive where others die. Don't make me underestimate you." Kael nodded, swallowing his fear. "Kael," he said, voice rough, "I don't want to underestimate you either." Sira gave a brief, almost approving nod, then leaped onto a floating platform with impossible grace. Kael followed, hesitating for only a heartbeat before his legs carried him faster than he thought possible. He stumbled, barely catching himself as a panel beneath him tilted, sending him sliding toward a pit of glowing plasma. Panic burned in his chest, but he remembered his training on Earth. Balance, focus, improvisation. Using the edge of the platform, he pushed off and landed in a crouch on the next surface. The arena reacted instantly, walls compressing and floors tilting. "Your reflexes are unusual," Sira said, almost in awe. "But unusual does not guarantee survival." Kael's chest heaved. "I don't plan to survive by luck." The next obstacle was a group of Zorathian drones, sparring units with reflexes faster than lightning and armor that seemed impenetrable. Kael's pulse raced as they lunged at him, blades flashing. He had no weapons, no enhancements. Just his wits, his instincts, and the relentless drive that had kept humanity alive on countless death worlds. He ducked a strike, rolled under another, and realized something remarkable. The drones adapted. They didn't attack mindlessly. They learned his patterns. Every human reflex, every hesitation was observed, and the arena itself altered in response. Sira was ahead, her bronze eyes narrowed, taking out drones with precise strikes. She glanced back. "They're learning from you," she said quietly. "Every move you make, they adapt." Kael's stomach dropped. He wasn't just surviving, he was training them. And if humans could teach Deathworlders how to endure, what would that mean for the galaxy? Hours or maybe minutes, time was distorted here, passed. Kael's muscles screamed. His mind teetered on the edge of exhaustion. Yet a strange exhilaration bloomed in his chest. This was what humans did. When the odds were impossible, when the universe seemed to conspire against them, they adapted. They endured. They fought. Finally, he reached the final platform. A pedestal suspended above a swirling vortex of energy that threatened to consume everything. One step too far and he would be gone. His arms shook. His legs quivered. And yet he took the step. Then another. Then with a leap he landed, solid, safe, for now. Varath's voice boomed from above, calm yet charged with something Kael couldn't place. "Remarkable. And dangerous. You may live. But consider this. Survival is merely the beginning." Kael's chest heaved. His mind spun with exhaustion, triumph, and fear. Around him the Zorathian recruits had stopped, watching him with expressions that blended curiosity, disbelief, and something almost like respect. Sira landed beside him. "I misjudged you," she said, and for the first time Kael saw vulnerability in her gaze. "Your kind fights differently, not just with strength but with will. That is dangerous for us, and for you." Kael exhaled, chest tight. "I fight to survive. I always fight to survive." But even as he spoke, a creeping sense of unease gnawed at him. The arena had learned from him. The soldiers had learned from him. Every lesson, every mistake, every act of human instinct was now imprinted in their minds. And if humans could teach Deathworlders how to endure, what consequences awaited the galaxy? From the shadows, Varath's silver eyes gleamed, watching, calculating. "This is only the first trial, Kael," he murmured. "And the universe has not yet seen the danger your species brings." Kael felt it, a cold realization that the Crucible was no longer just a test. It was a forge, and something inside him whispered that the fire was far from finished. The arena lights dimmed, signaling the end of the trial. Yet Kael's heart pounded with one undeniable truth. Survival had come at a cost he did not yet understand. And tomorrow the lessons would deepen. Kael awoke to the hum of the station, a low vibration that seemed to echo through his bones. The arena's trials had left him bruised, exhausted, yet alive, more alive than he had felt in years. His body ached, but his mind raced. The Crucible was teaching him something far beyond combat. Survival here demanded adaptation, intelligence, and a willingness to see the universe in a way humans rarely had to. Sira was waiting for him in the training hall. She had changed. Her bronze skin glimmered faintly in the morning light, her stance calm but alert. "You've survived," she said simply, but her eyes betrayed more than words. Respect, curiosity, unease. Kael rubbed his shoulder, grimacing. "I barely did," Sira shook her head. "You did more than survive. You taught them. Every move, every choice you made, they've absorbed it. Humans are unpredictable," Kael's stomach clenched. "Absorbed it? That's exactly what I was afraid of. If they learn how to think like humans, what happens next?" Sira hesitated, a shadow crossing her features. "Next is unknown. Dangerous, yes. Perhaps necessary. But dangerous." Kael felt the weight of her words. He had been trained on Deathworlds in harsh climates and against impossible odds. Yet this, training soldiers who were not just physically enhanced but capable of learning and adapting from him, felt like something entirely new. Something he might not survive. Their conversation was interrupted by Varath, stepping out from the shadows with a grace that made Kael tense automatically. "You question the consequences," he said softly. "Good. Questioning is the first step to understanding. Few humans dare to think beyond immediate survival. You are already ahead of your kind." Kael met Varath's silver eyes. "And that's a good thing?" Varath's gaze flickered with something like a smile. Sometimes it is dangerous. You are not merely a student here. You are a catalyst," Kael's mind spun. Catalyst for what? For war? For peace? For the end of something far larger than himself? He could feel the weight pressing down on him, heavier than any armor, sharper than any blade. The next exercise began without warning. The arena shifted around them, walls folding and unfolding like living creatures. Sira moved alongside Kael, guiding him, pushing him, challenging him to think in ways he had never imagined. "You have to see the patterns," she said, voice calm but urgent. "Not just the drones, not just the walls, the arena itself. Every system here is alive in its own way. It learns, it adapts. You must do the same." Kael nodded, focusing. Sweat ran down his temple as he leapt, rolled, and maneuvered through the complex. Every instinct honed by years of survival on human death worlds. The drones attacked faster now, their patterns shifting in response to his moves. A sharp voice cut through the chaos. "Kael, pause." He skidded to a stop on a tilting platform, heart hammering. Sira pointed to a section of the arena that pulsed with a strange violet light. "That section, don't touch it. The arena is testing limits, not just strength. Curiosity can kill here." Kael frowned. "Limits of what?" Sira's gaze was steady. "Of control. Of ethics, of humanity. Every choice you make is observed. Every hesitation, every shortcut. They're learning from you. You are not just surviving. You are shaping them." The words hit Kael like a blow. He realized something he hadn't considered. Survival alone wasn't enough. He had to teach, but teaching could turn into molding, into creating weapons whose consequences he couldn't foresee. Hours later, they paused on a high platform overlooking the arena. Drones had ceased movement, the lights dimmed, and silence fell like a heavy curtain. Kael's chest heaved. His muscles trembled. His mind felt like it was split in two, one side exhilarated by survival, the other terrified of the power he had inadvertently given. Sira leaned closer. "You are the first human to survive the Crucible long enough to teach them," she said softly. "And that is a dangerous position to hold, not just for you but for everyone." Kael swallowed. "I didn't choose this," he said. "I came here to observe, to report. Not to change the course of the galaxy?" Sira finished, eyes shadowed. "No, but change is happening whether you like it or not." From above, Varath's voice echoed, smooth and omnipresent. "You are learning more than survival, Kael. You are learning influence. An influence, like fire, can warm or burn. Choose carefully." Kael's stomach tightened. He had survived the arena, yes. He had proven human resilience. But the lessons of fire, the moral, psychological, and ethical weight of what he was teaching, were just beginning. And somewhere deep inside, he knew. The Crucible was not just testing him. It was testing humanity itself. The station never truly slept. Even in what the Zorathians called night, Faint pulses of light traced the walls like veins, and the hum of the Crucible vibrated through the corridors. Kael's body ached from the previous day's trials, yet sleep was impossible. Every shadow seemed alive. Every whisper of air carried a warning. Sira approached silently, her bronze skin almost blending with the dim lights. "You've drawn attention," she said, her eyes sharp. "Not all of it good," Kael frowned. "Attention?
From whom?"
"From within," Sira whispered. "Not all Zorathians agree with what we're doing. Some fear what your kind could teach them, some resent it, and some will try to stop it." Kael's stomach tightened. Humans were no strangers to enemies in the shadows, but this was different. These were not mindless rebels. They were soldiers, enhanced and trained to anticipate betrayal. And now he was both a teacher and a target. Barath's voice echoed, smooth as silver wind. "Kael, survival is only the beginning. Influence comes next. Will you lead, or will you falter?" Before Kael could respond, the training arena doors hissed open, revealing a corridor he had never seen. Red emergency lights cast jagged shadows across the walls. At the far end, a figure waited, a Zorathian instructor whose silver skin gleamed with a faint, malicious light. "You teach too well," the figure said, voice low and dangerous. "Your human instincts. They disrupt the order of our soldiers. That must end." Kael's pulse spiked. "I'm not here to disrupt. I'm here to survive." The Zorathian laughed, a sound like splintering metal. "Survival is irrelevant if you inspire rebellion." Sira stepped forward, eyes blazing. "Back off. He hasn't chosen sides yet. And if you strike him now, you risk everything we've built." The silver instructor sneered. "Then perhaps he should choose." Quickly, Kael realized the gravity of the moment. This wasn't training. This was a test of morality, loyalty, and power. Every choice he made now would ripple across the Crucible, shaping soldiers who could either destroy or protect countless worlds. He clenched his fists, feeling the raw determination that had carried humans through impossible odds on Deathworlds. "I won't fight you for dominance," he said slowly. "I'll fight to survive, and to show that strength can be more than violence." The instructor's eyes narrowed. "Words are meaningless without proof." The arena responded instantly. Walls shifted, platforms descended, and drones emerged, not to attack him but to observe. The test was not survival alone. It was influence under threat. Kael's every decision now shaped the soldiers' understanding of strategy, ethics, and leadership. Sira moved beside him, whispering, "Remember what you taught them. Survival is instinct. Influence is choice. Show them both." Kael took a deep breath and made the first decision of many. Instead of engaging the silver instructor directly, he used the arena itself, maneuvering with human ingenuity, exploiting gravity shifts and drone patterns. Every move he made was a lesson in adaptability, creativity, and restraint. The Zorathian instructor lunged, but Kael's path had already predicted him. Instead of a direct clash, the arena funneled him into a containment field, non-lethal yet incapacitating. Kael seized the moment to teach the observing soldiers something unexpected: mercy, strategy, and the power of thinking beyond raw aggression. Sira watched, a rare smile flickering across her features. "They're watching, learning." "From you," she murmured. "Even when you're not aware." Kael's chest heaved. For the first time, he understood the Crucible's true purpose. It was not merely a test of strength. It was a mirror, reflecting every human instinct back at the Zorathians, and every choice carried consequences far beyond the arena. Hours later, the confrontation ended. The silver instructor had been subdued, not destroyed. Kael realized that he had not only survived but influenced the outcome. The soldiers around him, bronze, silver, and everything in between, now regarded him differently. He had shown them a path that combined human resilience with reason, courage with compassion. But Kael could feel the tension in the air. Not everyone approved. Shadows shifted among the ranks. Some soldiers would follow, some would resist, and some would wait for the right moment to strike. Barath's voice echoed once more, calm yet ominous. "You have learned, Kael, and they have learned from you. But remember this: teaching fire to the universe is not without consequence. Flames can warm, or they can consume." Kael swallowed hard, realizing the truth of Barath's words. Every lesson, every act of survival, every display of strategy would ripple across the galaxy. He was no longer merely a human in the Crucible. He was a teacher, a catalyst and perhaps a spark that could ignite war or hope. As he left the arena with Sira, Kael's mind raced. The shadows were shifting, both within the station and within the soldiers themselves, and somewhere deep in his chest a quiet determination took root. He would teach wisely, or the consequences would be unimaginable. The Crucible had become more than survival. It had become a test of humanity itself. The Crucible never allowed rest. Even in the quiet hours, Kael could feel the arena's pulse as if it had grown sentient and watched him when he slept. He had survived, influenced, and adapted, but now the lessons demanded more than instinct. They demanded judgment. Sira found him in the observation deck staring down at the arena below. Her eyes were sharp, scanning, yet there was tension etched into the bronze planes of her face. "There's unrest," she said, voice low. "Some of the recruits are questioning their orders. Others, plotting." Kael's brow furrowed. "Plotting? Against whom?" "Against everything," Sira whispered. "Against Varath, against the Empire, against you, and perhaps against themselves. You've changed their understanding of power. Not all of them are ready to handle it." Kael swallowed hard. On Earth, humans had faced Deathworld predators, famine, and war, but never had one human's action so tangibly shifted the psyche of an entire alien species. And now Kael realized survival would not be enough. Influence came with responsibility and consequences. Suddenly, an alarm blared, sharp and urgent. Red lights swept across the observation deck, casting long shadows. The arena doors hissed open, revealing a group of Zarathians, not instructors, not drones, but soldiers with intent in their gaze. "You've taught them too well," one said, silver skin glinting, eyes sharp as knives. "They question orders. They hesitate. They see possibilities where obedience once ruled." Kael stepped forward, voice steady despite the adrenaline surging through his veins. "They learn from necessity. From survival. Not from me personally. You are trained to adapt, just as I am trained to survive." Sira placed a hand lightly on his shoulder. "This is more than survival. This is a test of leadership, Kael. How you respond now will shape who they become." The group advanced, weapons drawn, but Kael noticed hesitation in their movements. They weren't attacking recklessly. They were testing him, assessing whether the human before them represented threat, ally, or obstacle. Kael's mind raced. He could fight and destroy them, ensuring obedience, but that would teach only fear. He could retreat, risk being overpowered and potentially lose influence, or he could gamble on something entirely human, trust and ingenuity. "Stop," Kael called, raising his hands. "I'm not your enemy. I've survived this arena, yes, but that survival was never for dominance over you. It was to show that power is choice, not instinct alone." The soldiers paused, uncertainty flickering across their faces. Kael continued, stepping closer, voice firm yet calm. "If you follow orders blindly, you are weapons. If you think, adapt, and choose, you are soldiers. Yes, but also something more. You are beings capable of strategy, morality, and resilience." For a long moment, silence reigned. Then one soldier lowered his weapon, slowly, deliberately. "You would have us think?" Kael nodded. "Yes, I would have you think. To survive is necessary. To choose is power. But power without guidance leads to destruction." Another soldier shifted, bronze skin gleaming faintly. "And if we refuse?" "Then you learn," Kael said quietly. "From me, from each other, and from your mistakes. But I will not force your hands. I will not teach fear." The tension was palpable. Then, almost imperceptibly, the silver soldier who had challenged him first took a step back, lowering his weapon entirely. One by one, others followed. Kael realized he had not just survived a physical trial. He had survived a test of trust and influence. Sira exhaled softly. "You've done something no human has done before," she said. "You've taught them choice. And choice is dangerous." Kael's chest tightened. He knew the truth of her words. Trust was fragile. Influence was unpredictable. And somewhere deep inside, he sensed that Varath was watching, calculating and waiting for the consequences to unfold. As they walked back through the corridors, Kael's thoughts churned. He had survived the arena, survived ambush, and survived moral tests. But the Crucible was far from over. He was shaping not just soldiers, but an entire philosophy of warfare, resilience, and thought. And somewhere, hidden in the shadows of the station, a spark of rebellion had begun. Varath's voice finally reached him, smooth as silver wind, echoing down the hall. You have made choices, Kael, and they will echo farther than you imagine. Influence is fire, and fire cannot be contained forever. The Crucible had shifted. What had once been an arena of training had become a theater of possibility and danger. Kael could feel it in the air. Tension coiled in the corridors, eyes watching from every corner, whispers flowing like currents beneath the metallic walls. The soldiers he had influenced were no longer just learners. They were thinking, choosing, questioning. Sira found him in the observation deck, bronze eyes narrowed with concern. They're moving, she said quietly. Not openly, but in small groups. They test each other, strategize, plan. They're not just soldiers anymore, they're thinkers. Kael ran a hand through his hair, exhaustion tugging at every muscle. I gave them choice, he admitted. I taught them how to think, how to survive. But I never intended to spark a rebellion. Sira's gaze was sharp. Intent rarely matters in fire. You sparked it anyway. Far below, the arena's lights shifted, pools of green and violet reflecting across the walls. Soldiers moved with coordinated precision, silently communicating in ways Kael had never anticipated. Even the drones adapted, mimicking human unpredictability, responding to strategies that had never existed before. Varath appeared, stepping from a shadowed walkway above. It begins, he said softly, almost reverently. You have influenced them, Kael. You have shown them what it means to survive and to choose. Now you will see the consequences of teaching fire. Kael's pulse quickened. He had survived traps, ambushes, and moral tests, but this was different. This was no longer about survival or strategy. This was about control or the lack of it. The students were learning to outthink their instructors. Suddenly, alarms blared across the station, a high-pitched wail that cut through the hum of the Crucible. Doors slammed shut, corridors sealed. Kael realized what was happening before Sira even spoke. The recruits were orchestrating a lockdown. They're rebelling, she said, voice tight. They're not violent yet, but they're challenging authority. Every action they take is deliberate, and they're waiting to see how you respond. Kael swallowed. The Crucible had taught him survival, yes, but it had also taught him influence. Every decision now would ripple through this station, shaping soldiers whose strength was both physical and intellectual. One wrong move and they could destroy everything, or use everything to forge a new order. He stepped into the main arena, where soldiers were already gathered. Bronze, silver, and hybrid shades moved together, forming patterns that spoke of coordination, trust, and thought. One soldier, silver-skinned, eyes sharp, stepped forward. Human, it said, voice measured. We follow your teaching. But orders we no longer obey blindly. We choose. Kael's chest tightened. The words echoed what he had feared and hoped. Humanity's spark had taken root. But with power comes responsibility, and the burden was heavier than any armor he had worn. Varath's voice thundered from above. You cannot control them, Kael. You can only guide them. And guidance can be as dangerous as war itself. The Silver Soldier advanced. Then guide us, human. Teach us the next step. Kael looked around at the soldiers whose eyes mirrored determination, curiosity, and something almost human, hope. He realized the station, the Crucible, the Empire itself, had underestimated the consequences of teaching humanity's principles. Ingenuity, resilience, and moral choice. I will guide, Kael said, voice firm. But not as a master, as a teacher, as someone who survived impossible odds and believes that survival alone is not enough. You will choose. You will think. And together we will decide the path forward. A ripple of murmurs passed through the ranks. Sira nodded, her eyes reflecting pride and worry in equal measure. You've done it, she said softly. You've given them choice. And now the real test begins. Kael felt the weight of every life in the arena, Zorathian and human alike. He understood something that Varath may never have. Power without morality is destruction, but power with morality could change the universe. Far above, Varath's silver eyes gleamed. Very well, human. Let us see if fire can forge something greater, or consume everything in its path. Kael knew one truth that burned brighter than fear or exhaustion. The Crucible was no longer about survival. It was about the future. The soldiers he had taught would shape it. And Kael, human, survivor, teacher, would have to guide them through the shadows, or risk the consequences of his own lessons. The first sparks of rebellion glimmered, and Kael stood in the center of the arena, ready to lead not by force but by principle. The universe held its breath. The arena was alive with whispers of movement, shadows folding over shadows, and the subtle hum of anticipation that only a sentient station could produce. Kael stood at the center, chest tight with exhaustion, yet his mind sharpened by weeks of trials, moral decisions, and hard-won influence. Sira approached, her bronze eyes reflecting both pride and fear. "They've taken positions," she said softly. "Not to attack, but to defend. To protect something. Something they believe in." Kael's gaze swept over the ranks. Soldiers of silver, bronze, and hybrid shades, the very recruits he had taught, stood poised, waiting for direction. Their eyes were wide with trust, curiosity, and something more profound: choice. The Crucible had forged more than warriors. It had forged thinkers, leaders, and beings capable of moral judgment. Varath appeared, silent and towering, silver eyes fixed on Kael. "You have done the impossible," he said. "They follow you, yet are free to choose. That is dangerous and remarkable. Few species can bear such fire." Kael exhaled slowly. "Not follow me," he corrected. "We lead together. I survive, yes, but they survive because they choose to. And that is humanity." From the shadows, the rebellion spark flared brighter. Some soldiers had begun coordinating, securing areas of the station, communicating silently. Kael realized that this rebellion was not chaos. It was evolution. The lessons he had taught, resilience, ingenuity, moral choice, and strategy, had rippled beyond survival. The Zorathians were learning to be more than soldiers. A sudden alarm blared, a simulation of attack. The Crucible was testing them one last time. Kael felt the tension coil through his chest. The station itself seemed to pulse with curiosity, eager to see if humans could truly guide others without destroying them. Kael stepped forward. "Remember what we've learned," he said firmly, voice carrying across the arena. "Survival is instinct. Strategy is choice. And above all, morality defines us. We fight not because we must, but because we choose. And what we choose now will echo far beyond this station." The recruits moved. Not blindly, not with fear, but with coordination, thought, and ethical precision. They neutralized threats without unnecessary destruction. They adapted, improvised, and protected one another. Kael watched, awe and pride mingling with exhaustion. Sira stepped beside him, voice trembling slightly. "You've done it, Kael. They've learned more than survival. They've learned humanity." Varath's silver eyes gleamed, a complex emotion Kael couldn't name flickering within them. "The universe will remember this. Few species can endure Deathworlds, yet here you have not only endured, but guided another species to a new understanding. That is rare, that is exceptional." Kael felt the weight of every choice he had made, the trials, the moral dilemmas, the subtle guidance of the rebellion, and realized something profound. The Crucible had not broken him. It had refined him, and in doing so it had refined others. Humanity's spirit, the relentless drive to survive, adapt, and protect, had taken root in an alien species. A bronze-skinned soldier stepped forward, eyes bright. "You have taught us more than tactics or endurance," she said. "You have taught us thought, choice, and hope. And we will carry that forward." Kael nodded, chest tight. "That is all any of us can do. Teach what we know, survive what we must, and hope that the spark continues." The Crucible hummed, the light softening, walls settling. The arena had tested them. The trials had ended, and yet something new had begun. A partnership had been forged, not by fear, domination, or obedience, but by trust, resilience, and shared purpose. Sira smiled faintly. "Do you realize what you've done?" she asked. Kael looked across the arena, at soldiers who were no longer students, at a station that had become alive with possibility, and at Varath, who watched silently from above. "Yes," he said quietly. "We've survived, and now we've taught something worth more than survival. We've taught choice. We've taught humanity." Varath's silver eyes shimmered like distant stars. "Perhaps you have given the galaxy something it has never seen before." Kael's heart swelled with quiet pride, not for himself, but for the species he represented, the relentless, adaptive, and resilient human spirit that had thrived on Deathworlds and now lived, even in the eyes of aliens, as a spark of hope. and in the shadows of the Crucible, the galaxy itself seemed to hold its breath, sensing that the fire of humanity, dangerous, unyielding, and brilliant, had ignited a legacy that no force could fully extinguish. Kael exhaled, the weight of survival replaced by a new truth. In teaching, in guiding, in enduring, humanity had left its mark on the stars, and somewhere deep in the corridors of the station that spark began to grow.